Now begins the recitation of the Aletheon, the divine avataric self revelation of His divine presence, Avatar Adi Da Samraj. The forever spoken word of reality itself. The source texts of my direct self utterance are the always living word of reality itself, now and forever hereafter, spoken by me to absolutely every one and all and all. The source texts of my divine avataric word always communicate reality itself in present time. The source texts of my divine avataric word are the perpetual and now and forever hereafter always direct and non-mediated self-utterance of my real person as I am. The source texts of my divine avataric word are addressed by me directly to every particular individual, personally, but also in and as reality itself, and thus eternally prior to the ego I. Such is the uniqueness of the forever spoken word of reality itself. No matter how many times you read or listen to my divine avataric word, every time you read it or listen to it, you will experience unique and distinct responses, unique and distinct subjective activity, and a distinctly unique circumstance altogether. Nevertheless, the reason that my divine avataric word is, in reality, new every time you approach it is not simply that you are always going through changes. Rather, the reason my divine avataric word is always new and always now is that it is the direct self-utterance of reality itself, which is always already prior to time, space, location, point of view, and ego I. The conventions of everyday speech and writing are based on a social convention that is, in reality itself, untrue. The I of the presumed separate and independent self is an illusory, or, in reality itself, non-existing and abstract, and thus universal and inherently non-personal identity, by which, as a device for social dramatization or relational reference, all common spoken and written language is proposed. My divine avataric word is not spoken or communicated from, or ultimately even to, the egoic point of view. It is commonly presumed, merely as a matter of convention, rather than of experiential observation, that intelligence and thought are functions of personal identity, inherently associated with a central and constant source construct, which is the I thought, or a separate self, or a separate personal mind, identified as the origin of intelligence, thought, and action in general. However, in fact, confirmed by direct experiential observation, intelligence and thought are autonomous activities associated with the brain-body complex and with the structure and symbols of language itself, both verbal and abstract. Truly, The exercises of intelligence and thought go on constantly, and in general, without a context of I reference, or of a separate self presumption. Intelligence and thought are, in general, no more the evidence and the result of an active and central ego identity than any instance of mere perception, originating as it does from the simple contact between the brain-body complex and a source of sensation. The I reference is a convention of social representation, and in fact, no definable, quantifiable, or comprehensively identifiable separate self is, or even can be observed. Likewise, no separate, definable, quantifiable, or comprehensively identifiable personal mind is, or even can be, experienced or by any means known. Thus, the I reference, the separate self, and the separate personal mind are mere and otherwise unknowable conventions of common speech, and otherwise or in, of, and as themselves, they are fictitious entities, or socially and subjectively presumed myths. In general, the I thought does not arise in the context of active intelligence and active thought. The exercise of intelligence and thought does not, in general, include I references, as if to remind oneself who is thinking, reading, counting, perceiving, talking, and walking. Thus, the I reference is, in general, reserved for socially interactive communication and other forms of socially dramatizing or socially speaking mind. And otherwise, the I thought or I concept does not arise in the reveries of intelligence and thought, whether in the waking state or in the dream state. My divine avataric word is, primarily, a spoken message. However, that message is not spoken by an ego I, nor is that message spoken either originally or forever hereafter in any then present time moment within a mere social context, or as an address to any mere social ego. Written language is, basically, a representation or a picture of spoken language. Therefore, my divine avataric word is, in its written form, a visual representation or always now spoken textual sign that extends or self-radiates my egoless self-nature, self-condition, and self-state, which is the egoless self-nature, self-condition, and self-state of all and all. I spontaneously uttered the picture that is my every source text of divine avataric word, each of which is a by me given means whereby I speak from and as the reality position that is prior to egoity, prior to the body-mind complex, prior to conditional existence, and prior to time and space. Therefore, my written word is the speech or direct self-presentation of intrinsically egoless and self-evidently divine, transcendental, spiritual conscious light itself, the most perfectly self-awakened and self-evidently divine self-consciousness, the heart word of reality itself, which is the by me divinely avatarically self-transmitted, inherent and tacit self-apprehension of being itself. Ordinary speech and written language are a theatrically conceived mode of communication, which, as such, is played upon the fiction of an ego I, much as a tent for social meeting is hoisted on a center pole. Therefore, in the ordinary written language of English, the ego word I is commonly capitalized, and everything presumed to be, at least grammatically, subordinate to the ego I is shown in lower case. Indeed, everything that is grammatically and linguistically conceived to be other than the ego I is grammatically subordinated to the egoic I reference, and thus and thereby defined as not self. Any presumed persons grammatically identified as other than the principal subject or speaker are commonly shown in lowercase only, unless they are being addressed or referred to by name. Capitalization is otherwise commonly reserved for big meanings, or whatever the fictional ego I presumes to be somehow great, or even larger, and therefore the ego presumes greatly other than itself. Thus, the fiction of ego I is a mere grammatical convention, as is every other, and indeed all of not self. The ego I, the other, all of not self, all of separateness, all of relatedness, all of otherness, and all of difference is a mere convention of speech and of speech-born thought. In this manner, grammar, or the conventional logic inherent in the autonomous proceedings of language itself, rules both daily life and all of human thought and philosophy, unless reality itself, which is truth itself, intervenes and subordinates all language to itself. My divine avataric word of direct self-utterance is spoken from the inherently perfect self-position of reality itself, which is the true divine heart, or the context of prior and inherently free being itself. The ultimate self-nature, self-condition, source condition, and self-state that always already transcends the ego I, the conditional world of others and things, and the primary illusions of separateness, otherness, relatedness, and difference. Therefore, my divine avataric word always presumes and communicates a view of the world and of truth that is prior to egoity and prior to the vision of the world and the vision of truth made by the theatrically presumed fictional character, or the merely grammatically originated and, thus and thereby, conventionally presumed social persona of ego I. My divine avataric word is the spoken and written extension of my spontaneous intention to, by a causally effective means, awaken the root consciousness of every being to its real, egoless, transcendental, spiritual, and self-evidently divine self-nature, self-condition, and self-state. Therefore, the conventions of capitalization and non-capitalization in my source texts are word signals to the intrinsically egoless and self-evidently divine transcendental, spiritual conscious light that is the very you of all my word, of all and all address. The only centerpole of my divine avataric word is reality itself. The conscious light, or true divine heart, that is transcendental, inherently spiritual, intrinsically egoless, and self-evidently divine being itself. The uppercase written words represent or picture the reality truth of heart significance, and the lowercase words, by comparison, characteristically achieve significance as indicators or representations or pictures of conditional or limited existence. To read or listen to and understand my divine avataric word is to be acausally released from having to exercise the egoic vision and its separate and separative point of view. Therefore, read and listen to and recite and feel, rather than merely think, the words of my divine avataric message. The big and small letters of my texted gift always interrupt the common flow of mind and signal the heart of you that this moment is the necessary instant of self-awakening to be as you are. My divine avataric word is a form of my divine agency, an extension of myself, a means whereby I bless all and all. My divine avataric word is not independent of me. My divine avataric word is not a substitute for me. Therefore, as you read or listen to my divine avataric word, do not abstract yourself from me. Do not approach my divine avataric word as if it were a something in and of itself, separate from me. Do not make my divine avataric word into a substitute for me. Always use my divine avataric word rightly, as a by me given means to turn to me. Only by turning to me, and not merely to my explanations in mind, can anyone receive the divine avataric gifts I offer to all and all, by means of my all and all brightening word of heart. By turning all the faculties of body-mind to me, my true devotee tacitly locates me, and in that ego-transcending devotional turning, and entirely by means of my avataric self-transmission of divine, bright, transcendental spiritual grace, my true devotee will in due course be whole bodily, transcendentally, spiritually pervaded by me, and will thus and thereby, in the perpetual circumstance of turn to me devotion, realize perfect non-separateness from me. Here ends the recitation of the Aletheon. A horse appears in the wild is always already the case.